Close to 200 of the world's nations will come together this week as the Brazilian capital hosts the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development. Known more succinctly as Rio +20, this year's Earth Summit is the biggest UN conference ever staged. But while it might be the biggest, it's not exactly expected to be the best. In fact, expectations are pretty low. 20 years ago, the first Rio Earth Summit was held at a time when the world was waking up to the environmental problems threatening the planet. The destruction of the rainforests, the hole in the ozone layer and the loss of biodiversity were all issues troubling the public mind. As the ABC reported at the time, Australia was represented by the Hawke Labor government's Environment Minister, Ros Kelly.
Our achievements are the result of all Australians working together as one nation dedicated to protection of the environment and ecologically sustainable development.
Mrs Kelly did say Australia would provide its environmental expertise to other nations and reaffirmed the commitment to cut greenhouse gas emissions as long as that didn't hurt the economy. But in all of the negotiations, in all of the proposals being debated here, there's not one legally binding contract which would commit anyone to anything.
Well, as you saw there, the original Earth Summit was widely considered to be a bit of a cop-out. But compared to some of the environmental talkfests that have followed, in hindsight, the original Rio Summit doesn't compare too badly. Agreements were forged to set up UN bodies to fight environmental problems like climate change, biodiversity loss and desertification, otherwise known as land degradation. World leaders also agreed on a set of goals to guide future sustainable development. But 2 decades on, the problem facing those gathering at this year's Rio Earth Summit is the sad fact that few of those targets have been met, and the world's environmental problems have only become worse. In the last 20 years, it's estimated 3 million square kilometres of Arctic sea ice has been lost, so too 30 million hectares of Brazilian rainforest. Global demand for the world's natural resources has more than doubled, and carbon emissions have climbed 40%. Biodiversity loss is actually accelerating. But in 2012, the world economy is also mired in a financial crisis. So there's little optimism that this latest Rio Earth Summit will see governments keen to stump up new money for environmental programs.